Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Belgium once again, and we're actually going to review a beer that I have found is becoming increasingly available in Scotland, so I felt it was about time that I gave this guy a review. We're going to go to Brouwerij Affligem and have a taste of their blonde beer. Now this beer was originally brewed at the Affligem Abbey, which is about 12 miles to the northwest of Brussels, but it's now brewed in the fairly nearby town of Opwijk, which is also to the northwest of Brussels as well, about the same distance. They're very close if you have a look at the map. But as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very kind of brief history of the brewery. I'll also tell you about the abbey from which this beer hails originally, but if you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that hopefully I'll add from Brouwerij Affligem in the fairly near future. So anyway, to tell you about the brewery, as I said to you, was originally attached to the Affligem Abbey, and it was founded in 1074 by 6 knights who wanted to dedicate the rest of their lives to the poor after leading lives of fighting for queen and country and all of these sort of things. But the abbey, as I told you, is located about 12 miles to the northwest of Brussels, and they originally started to brew beer here as a means to basically to raise funds for their charitable deeds. But in 1085 these knights were accepted into the Benedictine order, and the abbey actually remains a Benedictine abbey to this day. But the first mention of Affligem Abbey is in the historical records in the year 1129, and at this point in history it was home to 200 people, and it also had considerable produce and land as well. They had vineyards and a whole host of other things going on at the brewery at this time. But over the coming centuries, and this was due to the strategic position of the abbey walls, if you like, the abbey was actually destroyed twice. This was during the War of Succession, and after this it was restored, and then it was destroyed once again by Prince William of Orange in the year 1580. But the abbey was again rebuilt, and it became home to a very famous painting of Jesus falling under the weight of the cross, and this was painted by Rubens in the year 1634. Apparently the saint who's giving him some water is actually a picture of Rubens' wife, and that's a very interesting fact about that painting. So if you are into your religious heritage and things like that, it's probably quite a cool place for you to go and visit. But at the beginning of the 18th century, Louis XIV of France actually turned the abbey into a soldier's garrison, and the monks were forced to live in the library in close quarters. But in 1796, due to the secularization that occurred after the French Revolution, the abbey and its assets were actually publicly sold off, and the monks were then exiled. But 2 monks who survived the French Revolution reunited, and they began to restore the abbey, and they completed their work in the year 1887. But after the Second World War in 1956, the brewery closed for the final time, and Father Tobias at this time took the very difficult decision to share the brewery secrets with an independent brewery, and they continued to brew the beers. So the beers were brewed under the name Affligem Abbey by the Op Ale brewery in Opwijk in Belgium, which was quite close by. As I said to you, it's in the same kind of part of Belgium, just to the northwest of Brussels. But this brewery was then taken over by Heineken, who then renamed the beers Affligem Brewery or Affligem Brouwerij, however you want to describe it. But so this beer is actually brewed by Heineken these days, but apparently it is a very nice beer, and it's got really good ratings on both Rate Beer and Beer Advocate. So without further ado, let's get on to the tasting of this guy. Just to tell you the other beers that you can get from Brouwerij Affligem, you can get the Blonde, which is this guy here, the QV 950, which was dedicated for the 950th anniversary of the Abbey. You get the QV Florem, Double, Noël, Triple, and they've also got 2 Patersvat beers, which I believe is perhaps a Triple and a Blonde, and there's maybe is a Double as well. I'm not quite sure about that, but they're supposed to be very nice, and hopefully I can review a few more of these for you in the future. But let me just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. It's quite nicely done, a kind of classical sort of medieval style Belgian thing. On the side it says a smooth bodied golden abbey beer with a light hoppy character and surprisingly clean finish. Contains secondary fermentation in the bottle and contains barley malt also. So there you can see the Affligem bottle cap on this one. I'll just let the camera focus in on that for you there. And it tells you on the side, it says Affligem Abbey Ale is brewed in Belgium according to the old method since 1074. And you can see a little picture on the side of the abbey there, but as I say, it's quite nicely presented. You can see the top label on this guy here. It's a bit difficult just because of the light levels here. The light's reflecting around off the shiny gold bit, but it's very nicely presented. So it's a 6.8% Belgian Abbey Blonde beer. So let's get cracking with this guy and see how we get on. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening, quite a bit of carbonation rushing out of this guy, but we'll get it out and into the glass. As you can see, there's a nice big head coming out, and there's a good bit of sediment just floating around in the bottle there. I can't see it, but you can smell a little bit of the fruit, the citrusy fruit and the kind of grassy hops coming off of this guy just as you pour it out, without even paying too much attention to it. So as you can see, this guy is poured, I'll just bring up the light so you're seeing it, it's poured a nice kind of dark golden colour, if you like. There's a lot of sediment floating about in this one, but that's maybe just because it's been, I've had this bottle about 7 or 8 months, so it's maybe just when it's been sitting in the cellar that it's sedimented a bit. But as you can see, there's a nice finger and a half of frothy white head there. It's a little bit bumpy as well, that'll gradually go down, but it looks really nice. If I put my fingers behind that there, you can see it's not really transparent at all, but it looks a very, very nice beer. A kind of dark, definitely a dark kind of orangey amber colour, this one, but there's a lot of floating sediment in there, but it looks very, very nice. So let's have a look at the aroma with this guy. So as you would expect, you've got the kind of typical Belgian bready yeasty elements coming out of this one. You can pick up a little bit of banana too, but it's got a nice kind of big Belgian yeast, as I say. You've got a little bit of a kind of wheaty spice in there, but there's a big sort of white bread and doughy element coming out too. And there's just a little bit of that kind of banana sweetness in there, just a little bit. It's not too strong with that banana character, but there's a nice kind of grassy and aromatic floral character coming out too, and that little bit of lemony citrus. It does smell like a typical Belgian blonde ale. It's got all the elements that you would expect, but it's not too strong in the aroma, I would say that. As is typical with all Belgian beers, the most prominent component is definitely this kind of big bready yeast and the doughy character to it, but it smells really, really nice. But it's 6.8% on the Richter scale. So this is the Affligem Blonde from Brouwerij Affligem in Opwijk in Belgium. Cheers! Very smooth actually. The first thing you notice when you first put it in the mouth, it actually does have quite an active carbonation, this one. But it's quite light. It is actually a very light mouthfeel. It's definitely a light-bodied one, this. But yeah, you just get a nice bready blanket that coats the middle of the palate there, where you usually expect the kind of malty flavour. So you've got a nice bready Belgian yeast character coming out here, and you've got a nice kind of wheaty, slightly wheaty spice that comes out in it, but it's a big doughy, bready yeast flavour that comes out in this beer, and it blankets the tongue really, really nicely. It actually leaves a little bit of dry character, and it kind of leads well into the hoppy flavours that you're getting around the edge of the tongue there. But yeah, you've got a really nice, as I say, that really nice kind of Belgian-y bready yeast flavour in there. This guy is actually particularly nice in that regard. There's a bit of a banana flavour, and it's a bit stronger than some of the other blonde beers I've had, and you'll just pick that up in the middle of the tongue. But the most prominent component of the flavour is a big kind of doughy bread flavour, like I say, and you've just got that bit of yeast sweetness underneath, and that blankets the middle of the palate. It's exactly what you would expect from a blonde ale. But around the edges of the tongue, the hop character is actually quite interesting. There's a fair few things going on there. Yeah, you've got a nice floral and grassy character that's going around the front of the tongue there. It becomes a little bit more aromatic-y as you go round towards the back corners of the tongue. And as I say, the kind of wheat spice actually kind of moves nicely. It blends well with the kind of aromatic-y hop dryness that goes around the edges of the tongue. But around the front you're getting the more grassy elements there, and you can really feel on the very edge of your palate where the kind of dry and aromatic flavours are coming in. But yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of lemony citrus around the very kind of front curve of the tongue there, but it's got a nice grassy character in there too. It's really interesting. The hop character is quite prominent there, and you've just got that nice transition, as I say, between the kind of wheaty spice from the malt base, and that moves into the aromatic-y hops right at the back of the palate. It's an interesting beer, this. It's definitely worth trying. But yeah, It's really nicely done. So if you do like your Belgian blonde beers, definitely give it a go. It's a bit, I think it's a little bit more hoppy, if you like, and a little bit lighter than some of the other ones that I've tried from Belgium. So if you do want a blonde beer that is a little bit lighter and a bit more kind of hop forward, then I would say give it a go. In terms of the mouthfeel, it's light bodied. I would definitely say it's light bodied, and it's got a good carbonation in it. The carbonation is quite high in comparison to some other ones that I've had, but it's not overly high for a Belgian blonde ale. It's got a nice slightly oily mouthfeel to it as well. But that said, as I say, it is a little bit lighter. You've got a kind of sweet, light, bready middle, but then around the edges of the tongue you're getting a really nice, big, dry and slightly bitter character there. And in the aftertaste, it really is the kind of aromatic and grassy hops that are coming out of this beer, and you've got a nice malty middle in the tongue there, so it's actually really quite nicely done, I have to say. So if you do enjoy a Belgian blonde beer and you want one that's perhaps a little bit lighter and a little bit more hoppy, then this is definitely one you want to go for, and I can see why they've wanted to preserve the legacy, if you like, of the Affligem brewery. So it's been really cool to review this one for you, and as I say, this beer is becoming quite increasingly available throughout Scotland, so I'm sure those of you watching in the various other corners of the globe, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, maybe even Japan and things like that, I'm sure you will be able to find this beer at somewhere close to you. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Let me know in the comment section, as always, your own thoughts on this beer. It's been cool to return to Belgium once again, and I do have some more Belgian beers to review for you. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer, like I say, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will be back soon with more beer reviews. Slàinte.